Welcome to the Evergreen RX, your prescription for living well. Here, we're all about self-exploration, intentionality, and working with our mind, body, and soul for healing and growth. I'm your host, Hayden. I'm in my 20s and in search of connection, fulfillment, and ways to make sense of the world. If you're down, join me as I explore tools to bridge the gap between external reality and our deep inner worlds, discovering our own prescriptions for health, wholeness, and expansion. Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, and I'm really excited about today's topic, intuition. As I'm sitting down to record, I'm also noticing a little bit of nervousness or maybe even a little bit of overwhelm talking about a topic as big and, in my opinion, as important as intuition. To me, kind of similar to last week's episode about routine and ritual, intuition is one of those big pillars of wellness and of a, self-growth, spiritual, or just more a journey to greater intentionality. I think that intention is at the heart of it, and for me has been such an important journey over the past couple of years. So I'm feeling nervous about trying to encapsulate all of it, but I can imagine with this podcast that this is definitely not the last time that we'll be talking about intuition. I mean, for one, it's infused in every topic that we'll discuss, but just trying to take a little bit of the pressure off myself that this is the one and done talking about something that I think is just so important. So that's just a little bit about where I'm at today, where I'm coming from with recording this. But we can just go ahead and jump in with what intuition is. What do I mean when I'm talking about that? So intuition, I see as kind of like a two-pronged thing. So one way you can look at it is as a physical sensation, feeling, something that's really almost primal within us. That's kind of the gut feeling people talk about. When you're in a situation and all of a sudden the hairs stand up on the back of your neck and you're thinking, this is not safe, I need to go somewhere else, or this person is not safe. That gut instinctual feeling of knowing something about a situation that you might not know otherwise or without that feeling. So there's that side of intuition. I also believe that intuition comes with a spiritual link. So outside of just that, primal gut physical draw, I think that intuition is really in the subtle and spiritual and energetic realms. So this can be the idea of connecting to your higher self, a higher power, to spirit, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates with you. It's really about just getting at that idea that intuition is something bigger and greater. If we pause for a second and just think about intuition, connecting what that means for each of us, maybe taking a moment to feel into if what I'm describing connects with you at all. That idea of getting that gut feeling or a time where something just pops into your head, starting to already cultivate while we're talking about this, touching in with that sensation in you, because I can guarantee that every single person listening has encountered their intuition, has been guided by it before without maybe noticing, without realizing, even with it feeling like it was coming from somewhere else, something outside of you. I am 100% sure that everyone has had an experience that was intuitively led. Because, this is a foundational thing that we have to remember sometimes when coming back to our intuition, or when even just trying to strengthen that relationship, is that it does exist within all of us. That it's not a special gift given to the few or something that you can only access in certain times or ways. It is something that lives within all of us at all times, which I'm jumping ahead of myself because we will get into some of the beliefs and sometimes blocks around intuition later in this episode. But anyway, hopefully you're already connecting a little bit with what intuition is and what it feels like to you. Something I think that's important to talk about here is how it sounds different than the brain, than our logic, than, your kind of cognitive knowing. Intuition typically comes in a softer, quieter, more gentle form than the typical voice that's always running in our head. We get thoughts all throughout the day about a range of a million different things that sound one way. And intuition typically comes in with a different voice, with a different sound to it. Like I'm saying, it can be a whisper, it can be a fleeting image, a quick feeling. It speaks in these subtle and sometimes even symbolic languages, which, unfortunately, part of that is that it can be harder to tap into because the ego mind, the brain, it is more commanding and louder, and we're more used to that kind of communication. So tapping into something subtle and softer can be a new experience. I know that was definitely a new experience for me, and even still is something that's challenging because I love a good instruction. I love a good, clear, concise ABC, here's what you got to do. And intuition rarely, if ever, comes in that package. So that can be a practice, getting acquainted with that kind of relationship. This topic is really important to speak about for a lot of different reasons, but one of the foundational reasons that, I started working with my intuition and where I think it has a lot of benefit is in easing the struggle or strife that can come about when making decisions, which, like I was talking about in last episode, we have to do a lot of. And this is from the small, minute things to really big things. We are constantly choosing how to shape our lives and how to spend our time. And that can be overwhelming, and there can be a lot of mental noise and chatter, especially when it comes to some of those bigger or scarier decisions that are pushing us forward and helping us grow. The brain comes in with a loud voice. And when we're on this path of growth and expansion and self-exploration, we're actively accepting the invitation to need to dispute the mind a little bit and to do something different. And so the more that we're able to get in touch with this softer, quieter, more deeply held place of ourselves, the easier it can be to forge new paths and to continue on the self-growth journey, even when the brain is saying, don't do that. This is not what we've always done. This isn't our pattern. This isn't the rules that we've set up. So going back to intuition being linked with decision making, what I really mean by that is intuition is kind of the vehicle, the method, maybe the roadmap for how we move through the world, what we put our energy and time to, and how we show up. So this can be in overt and covert ways. It's like maybe you are overtly sitting down, getting in touch with yourself, letting an idea drop down and then pursuing that. Okay, that's one way. But covert ways is like, you've made a goal for yourself, or you've set an intention for yourself that you want to make new friends. And if you're moving throughout the world intuitively, if you're letting that be your guide, then maybe when you're out at a coffee shop, you just randomly get this, draw to say hi to the person next to you and ask them a question. And you end up striking a conversation and making friends with that person. You don't know where that came from. It was kind of spontaneous. It's not something you normally do. That is your intuition and your access to it flowing through you to guide your actions and your life to help you achieve those goals and desires that you have for yourself. When the actions we take are not solely generated by our brain or by our ego, but instead by our intuition, that's how we get where we want to go faster, smoother, with more ease, with more joy. So maybe you can even think back to examples in your own life. Maybe a time where you met a person, a friend, a relationship, a partner in the last place that you'd expect. Or you stumbled into a job opportunity through someone you knew, or, the most random job posting that normally you wouldn't run across. Or a time when you were searching for a friend in a crowded place and all of a sudden you bumped right into each other. We have an option to look at these situations from a coincidences happen, there's no connection, there's no meaning in this place. But my guess is if you are listening to this podcast and if you clicked on this episode, you're not wanting to just look at life that way anymore. Or you already have a sense that it doesn't, it isn't just all random chance and we're just stumbling around, hoping good things happen to us and that we avoid, pitfalls and roadblocks. My guess is that you already have a sense into what it feels like to be guided, what it feels like to move from a soul-centered place. And you probably know that it feels pretty damn good. And life starts to open up and work out and be beautiful the more you tap into this. And that's not to say bad things don't happen, because I really have such a strong belief that things that don't work out or feel bad in the moment are lessons, are teaching us something, are giving us some kind of gift, even if it's hard. And also a belief that, no emotion is bad. It's just all on the spectrum of emotions. So, we're not just trying to be Pollyanna. Look at how do you make your life sunshine and rainbows? What I'm saying here is how you use intuition as a tool to flow through life and everything that life brings you. Feeling more supported, more guided, and more aligned with whatever is meant to be brought to you in your life. So, how does it show up? Let's get more into it. Like I already said, intuition usually comes as a quieter kind of sense. It's not going to be commanding like our minds can be sometimes. She's gentle. She's got a really feather soft touch. So it can be really helpful to know all the different ways that we can sense into this, so that when our guidance comes, when these messages show up in our consciousness, we don't miss them. Intuition can come as a knowing. This is that almost like light bulb over the head type of moment. Something just pops into your head. You just know it to be true. I had this happen to me once a long time ago where I was about to go out on the lake, on the water, and I had this bracelet that I loved. It was from this like thrift store, and I thought, I need to take this bracelet off. But, I didn't want to. The clasp was kind of hard. I didn't want to have to put it back on. So I didn't. Went out on the boat. Guess what? I lost my bracelet. It's at the bottom of the lake somewhere. So it's that kind of feeling where you get to choose. We always have autonomy whether we follow it or not. But, it can come as that strike of knowing, just popping into your head. It can also come as a feeling. I don't know how much personal experience I've had with getting a feeling or an emotion as intuitive guidance, but I would imagine it feels something like, a feeling of pull towards a certain choice over another one where you kind of want to retract from it, or, or a really positive, happy feeling. Intuition can also come as a sensation. So that's like the hairs standing up on the back of your neck, your stomach dropping, your chest fluttering and feeling almost like it's lifting up. You're almost floating towards something that feels good. It can also come as a smell. That's a fun one. I don't think I've ever had an experience with this either, but it can also come as a mental image. So this can be symbolic images that have some kind of meaning to you. Also, I think colors. I think for myself, the way that this shows up a lot is kind of color impressions with certain people, which, you can take to be a little bit of like the energy that they're bringing or what their personality is. And I have a hard time even putting into words like what the colors really mean, but I just get like a sense for what they mean. Like if something shows up and it's kind of like orange, can't really tell you what that is communicating to me, but inside of myself I know, like I just can't put it into words, but I just understand it. And I think that's a very common thing with any of these ways of feeling intuition, is that usually it's not something that's like super easy to put into words because it comes in all these subtler or more abstract realms. It really isn't something that can just be translated right into language and into logic and into thought. That's going too much back up into the brain, when really all of this is more in tune with a bodily or energetic, emotional body sensation that doesn't work the same way as our brains and as our thoughts do. So hopefully as I'm talking about this, maybe some things are popping into your head of what your personal experience is, or even just what resonates with you. Definitely as I was learning about it and somebody was saying, oh, it can come as a knowing, I knew, probably intuitively, that was a way that I experience it. As much as I want to be the person that like hears a clear voice come through or smells something that has some significance to them, I have not really experienced that. That doesn't seem like the way that guidance shows up for me. Probably about 3 years ago, I really started down a journey of coming back in touch with the more intuitive, softer, more trusting parts of myself. The parts of myself that didn't just live up in my head and in my thought and what I could, logic out from myself. I was noticing that was causing a lot of anxiety. I would feel paralyzed trying to make a decision. And overall just feeling kind of lost, feeling like I was pushing myself into all of these boxes, but I wasn't actually like prioritizing what felt good or even knowing how to get in touch with what felt good. Intuition helps us so much in feeling more spiritually or even physically connected to the world around you, to the people around you. One of my favorite things my therapist has taught me, and something that we've come back to a lot over the years that we've worked together, is, the image that you're in a canoe and you're paddling on a river. And you have the choice. You can paddle upstream and you can work really hard and you can rely on yourself and only yourself. Or you can turn around and see that you are on a stream and you can paddle downstream. You can paddle with the flow, with the river, and with the support that comes with that. And that's the gift intuition gives us, is it doesn't have to be so hard. The idea is, we're turning our canoe around. And there is trust and there is faith that can come up around letting ourselves be guided, letting ourselves go with the flow. But if you can work through that, it's a lot easier. So you might be wondering a little bit, how do I do this? This sounds kind of cool. I'm a little bit interested. So the first step to really building this relationship with your intuition is about dismantling limiting beliefs and programming. So this is something that might have already come up with you as I'm talking, that little voice in your head that's going, interesting, but this is bullshit, or she's crazy, or you can never do that. Life can't be that easy. You got to use your head. Things only work if you do. You make your own destiny. A lot of different thoughts can come in. and doubts and, like I'm saying, trust. There's that trust piece of, if this isn't something you've experienced a lot before or have, consciously been aware of, like, it's gonna take some time to get there and build that relationship and see how it works for you. Just like any other relationship we would have with another person, you're not gonna like dive headfirst, because a lot of thoughts, a lot of worries or concerns can come up around that. Yeah, just noticing what those limiting beliefs are for you, noticing your blocks to thinking that this is something that you can have access to and you can also use as a tool. I think a big block for people around intuition is that it's limited just to psychics or healers. And for some people, psychics and healers seem just like batshit and woo-woo in general. And to other people, it can be like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm on board with a psychic, but I don't think I am one. So how do I use this? I don't have that special power or ability, which is something I thought for a really long time too, and still sometimes think is like, oh, seems like this is kind of like a magical power, and I don't think I'm very magical myself, so how am I supposed to use this? How am I supposed to trust anything that feels like a message that I receive or, guidance? So yeah, that's a big one to dismantle. I mean, I can just tell you here and now that it's not limited to psychics, it's not limited to healers. Everybody has it, everybody can do it, yada, yada, yada. Maybe that'll help you, but maybe it'll be something that you just have to work through over time. I definitely did. Didn't matter as many times as I heard it from teachers and mentors in this space. I was like, yeah, okay, but I'm unique in the way that I am not special, and I can't do this and you can. So it was just a process of working through that, probably still working through that. Another big one is the idea that our brain and our logic somehow has more legitimacy than our body, our heart, our soul. This is so common. I work as a holistic therapist, so I really from the onset tell people, we're going to be working with the body, we're going to be working with the emotions, we're going to be working with your brain too, but your brain is just one of the pieces, one of the tools that we work collaboratively with, that we don't just let commandeer the car and solely be the driver. Yeah, somewhere along the way, the brain, took power and has convinced us that it has more value than other parts of our being and of our experience. And it makes me kind of sad, honestly, because I've seen so many people that have divorced themselves of their body, of the beautiful connection they have with their feelings and what it's like to be a human, and just solely listen to and rely on the messages from their brain that are typically or can be harsher and sometimes meaner, more critical, more demanding. And that's unfortunate, because every part of us has a really beautiful role in the system of our being, and we want to give each one credence and credit and understand that they're all valuable. So another part of the journey to using your intuition as your guide is really committing to a practice. This looks different for everybody, and it's really important, I think, to figure out what works for you and what really resonates for you. For me, I've gotten really into tarot, oracle, just reading, pulling cards. The imagery on the cards, the meaning that's associated with them for, hundreds of years, that kind of storytelling narrative aspect with reading tarot just really works for me, and I enjoy it a lot, which I think is a huge key, is if you enjoy the practice that you're doing. Other tools that I like to use are journaling. A good way to kind of get out of your head and into the flow more is just automatic writing as fast as you can about whatever pops up, even if it sounds like nonsense. You might be surprised at what shows up, what comes out. I definitely have been. Meditating. Meditation can look like sitting and listening to some audio and closing your eyes, but it can also be through walking, through movement. We're going to talk about mindfulness next episode, so we can talk a little bit more about what meditation and mindfulness looks like outside of just the traditional method. But I do think that the traditional way of sitting and being quiet and still and making space is a super helpful tool for getting in touch with your intuition, because like I said, that soft, subtle energy, that guidance comes through, is really hard to tap into if we don't have any space or any quiet throughout our day, because we might just miss it. Yeah, so those are some tools that I like to use. I think some other great ones are art of any form, playing an instrument, things that get you into that kind of flow state where, you lose sense of time and you feel really in touch with yourself. Whatever it is for you, though, the importance is really committing to it. Keeping a consistent practice, continuing to show up for yourself, to connect with that part of yourself, to connect with what feels good, and even to thank yourself or thank your higher power for the guidance and support that you are receiving each day. And really creating that practice of noticing how it shows up for you, feeling really grateful, and just cultivating more and more of that awareness that intuition is there for you every day, and it actually does show up for you. Another tip that I have to throw out there is pursuing support and healing and dismantling those, limiting beliefs if you feel like that's something that you need. I can't imagine where I would be without having gone to therapy and really working with my therapist on intuition, on this connection to myself, to a higher power, to the things that really resonate with me. I just don't know where I would be if I had done it alone. There's so much that comes up. There's so many beliefs that have been deeply ingrained, probably were even, passed down in a part of me before I was even born. Like, so many things that have popped up throughout this process that I really needed someone to be there to work through it with and to help me heal. There can be things from the past and traumas that can be really important to heal before you can even feel safe enough sometimes. When we get quiet, when we make space for ourselves, things that are under the surface can bubble up, and there can be emotions with that, or memories or feelings that are challenging to deal with on our own. And I don't say this to scare anybody. It's really just to know what you need. And if you want support, to really access that. And that is, I think, a huge part of the process for a lot of people. And I know definitely is for me. So yeah, I think just knowing that things can show up as we create this new way of moving through the world and being with ourselves. And sometimes a professional can be really helpful through that process. Also, mentors. Mentors is a great thing. This can be people that make podcasts, that write books, maybe somebody that you know, or even a friend to share some of the guidance that you got with. This can be a really exciting process, and it's fun to have people to share it with that understand where you're coming from, that you can talk to about it. I think intuition really opens the gates to a lot of different areas of wellness and, spirituality or self-growth. And so having a partner or a mentor to go through some of that with and to just process out loud is helpful and sometimes really fun. The last thing I really want to touch on, because it just naturally comes up around thinking about intuition for me, which is the idea of female intuition. Like what we've been talking about with our brain, with cognitive versus body, energetic, softer kind of energy, which is where intuition lives. It's kind of that idea of, left brain, right brain, feminine energy versus masculine energy. And in our society, masculine energy has been valued very highly for a really long time. That, left brain, very logical, very facts and numbers based type of thinking, concrete thinking, is seen as more important than that right-brained, artistic, fluid, flowy, feminine energy. And there can be a lot of wounding and blocks around that. But also underscoring that, we don't have to justify this. We don't have to justify intuition. We don't have to justify what we feel is right, what we feel drawn to, and what we don't. It is the age-old thing of women having a sense of, a situation being dangerous and then talking themselves out of why, oh, I don't want to be rude. Like, this guy probably is fine. Or, I don't want to be dramatic. I don't want to be too emotional. That is part of the unraveling and healing that I think goes hand in hand with using this tool, because for so long, any decision or choice or way of moving through the world that had to do with emotionality or intuition or anything that couldn't just be put down on paper or pointed to as concrete fact was questioned and was undermined. And what we're really doing here is coming back in and reclaiming the value and the beauty and the skills and gifts that come along with tapping into our intuition and tapping into the parts of ourselves that have been neglected or shunned or pushed away because of this idea that it had no value. So that's my soapbox. So hopefully at this point you got a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. Maybe you're feeling some excitement over growing an intuitive practice in your life and using intuition as your guide. It's such an amazing thing when you start to do that, and I think any of you listening will really see that very quickly with this practice. But I want to go ahead and throw out your dose. So your dose this week is to really find how intuition feels for you. I gave some examples, talked a little bit about what it feels like for me, but really setting aside a little bit of time for yourself to play with those different senses I was talking about. Is it a smell? Is it a mental picture? Is it a knowing? Just sitting and getting quiet for a little bit and seeing what comes through, seeing what sense jumps out to you. And if none do, no worries. It is a process and there is no timeline to it. But I will say, usually the first thing that pops into our head is the right one. And so even if it's just for a fleeting second, you think, oh, I don't know. I really get what she means about, a mental image. Just holding on to that second before, all of the thoughts, all of these beliefs, all these things we're talking about dismantling come flooding in and make you question yourself. That's a win. That's something to go off of. And then a little something to chew on is to think about times in your life where you have been guided before. Like I said, 100% every single person has been at some point in their life, even if it feels super small. But just coming back through a time where you did feel guided or you did something that was unexpected or out of the box for you that you're kind of like, I don't know where that came from, or I don't know why I said that, or I don't know why I did that. All of that is guidance. All of that is intuition. So just finding one example or maybe many examples to show to yourself that you do have this ability, that it has been with you all along, and that it's something that you can get back in touch with. So yeah, that's all I got for you. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this topic plenty more as we go along. So if something stuck out to you, if something seemed helpful, then hit follow and keep listening and being a part of this community. Please message me on Instagram or send me an email if you want with anything that stuck out to you. If you have a question, I would love to hear from you and really continue building up this evergreen community. So yeah, next episode is going to be all about mindfulness. So stick around if you're interested, and I'll talk to you soon.